Welcome everyone to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And today we've got a conversation that we need to have more often. And we're having it with an expert here, Rich Watson. Now, Rich, you're not only a multiple time CRO, multiple exits, you've been senior VP of customer success and strategic accounts. You've been heavily involved in product development. What makes that so unique about what we're going to talk about today is that the title here is Growth Hinges on One Priority, and it's the customer experience. And it's actually the number one differentiator in the market today. And that's not just me saying that. There was a big McKinsey study. They talked to over 400 companies, B2C, B2B, that were highly profitable, and determined that the number one differentiator in the market is CX. Right? So this is so important to our growth and our go-to-market strategies. And you've got some real interesting perspectives on how to make that happen. And so we're going to get into that in just a second, but included in your background, you are, and congratulations, you're a relatively new father. You've got a 1-year-old.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate that.
So that makes you another C-suite chief dad officer, and it's a big responsibility. It's probably one of the biggest, right?
Yes, the most important. Oh, absolutely.
But here's what I'd love to do. If you wouldn't mind, just maybe expand a bit more on your background before we get started.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to find the space of education technology quite early in my career. Both my parents are former educators. I always wanted to do something where the convergence of deep impact, but also tech came together in a profound way. And I was very fortunate to find this kind of niche ed tech or the learning continuum. We've done some pretty incredible things that I've always represented and led businesses that have really transformed and innovated on that space to deliver outcomes for millions and millions of students. So that's my background and what drives me to do what I do.
So here's what I'd love to do just to get us started out here. We made a pretty big statement that customer experience is the number one differentiator today. I'd love to have you give color commentary to that conclusion from McKinsey that we all know is true. We all know it's true, right? But in your mind, why? What positions it to be that level of importance to us? And so therefore, something as C-suite executives, we should be thinking about all the time. And not just one of us or one department. This is like a full company all-out effort, right? I just love to have your perspective to get started.
Well, with the advent of AI solutions over the last couple of years, and especially happening now, there has never been in time, an easier way to build product. Everyone can build products. You don't have to have studied CS at Stanford for 8 years to figure out how to build an app anymore or to build a solution. And I think that so many very smart people are entering the market as solo entrepreneurs or teams of 3 or 4 people. And there's going to be more technology out there than there ever has been before, if we can imagine that. And so at the end of the day, customer experience is going to rule all of it because being able to solve the problem through technology is going to be amply available to buyers, no matter what space you're in. I think what's going to really differentiate us or any company is full stack. Are we thinking about from product all the way to the 10th renewal of a client, right? What does that entire feedback system look like? I think a lot of organizations make one key mistake, and they really think that this solely lives in the go-to-market org to solve. You think of customer experience or literally customer experience or CS orgs, and everyone assumes that's where this lives. And I think it's a seriously grave mistake to silo it into just a go-to-market org.
I love your point about technology, and it's so easy. ChatGPT's writing code these days, right? But what's interesting is if we look at the world of B2C, we've got chief customer officers, chief experience officers. But you look at the B2B world, and it's like we're still in the dark ages, right? Why don't we have a designated role that helps unite the entire company behind a CX strategy? And so it, like, you beg the question, like, who's in charge? Who's in charge of customer experience at the typical B2B company?
I think it starts with the money, right? The money dictates where organizations invest and spend. For the majority of time, a dollar of net new is always worth more in an investor's eyes than a dollar of renewal or expansion. And I think that sales teams get funded, VPs of sales get big salaries and robust comp plans and are paid on dollar one and have robust accelerators. Yet we almost look at the CX org as the afterthought. Renewal's automatic and expansion is going to happen because we have a great product. And how much does that person really have to do? And maybe some of that is true, and maybe some of that used to acutely be true. But I'm here to tell you that if it's not true today, it's going to be true in a matter of hours because of what I just said earlier. It's like there's too many companies coming in with tools like N8N and Zapier and so many others. We're not going to have to, like, organizations, businesses, K-12 school systems, of which our learning organizations, they don't have to buy into your whole robust platform anymore. They're going to want choice. They're going to want to customize the best in breed. And tools like Zapier are going to be able to connect all of these disparate solutions on behalf of the client. And so we're going to have to work even harder and harder to ensure that the output and the result for our customers is there.
You said a lot there. One of the things you said at the beginning is this preconceived notion or perception, right? That a dollar of net new is actually more important overall to us than a dollar of renewal or cross-sell, upsell, right? It just happens to be McKinsey again, too. They did a big study, and the return on investment of the same amount of effort put into new logo development versus loyalty and expansion of existing customers is like this. And so the actual facts behind it is, and I think this was a Forrester study I did that looked up a few things in advance of our conversation here. 73% of new annual revenue should be coming from existing customers. 73%. So that's a Forrester number. So I think to your point, we're placing the emphasis in the wrong places. And nobody's saying don't go after brand new customers, right? Nobody's saying that. What we're saying is we're missing an opportunity. Like you characterized it as, hey, we got a great product. Renewals are automatic on a subscription basis. Hey, we just do what we're supposed to do. Loyalty is it's just gonna happen. And our R score will just keep rising. And we don't really have to focus on it too much. What do you want to say to dispel that and get us refocused at how we're thinking?
You mentioned 73% of the revenue should be coming from existing clients. And I've done this a handful of times. I'll tell you, you're not going to get there. No one is going to buy product number 2, 3, and 4 from you if product number 1 doesn't work. And this starts with this handoff between sales and customer success. I was never a big fan of about what I'm about to say. I really am a big proponent for years and years of keeping sales and customer success as disparate teams, not burdening sales with all the realities of how difficult the product may be to implement. I am very pro keeping these two businesses aside. But the last couple of years has taught me and shown me, I actually think that we're going to have to start moving into a world where sales is compensated on the throughput, like how well an account actually implements, how well an account actually renews in that first renewal cycle. I actually think part of sales reps comp, and I will tell you, this is a religion to me. This is a rule to never break. And I am here saying, I really think we're going to have to think about it, because the way we're bringing you our customers, what we're promising on the front end, how we're showing them value in that first sort of 30-day sprint, that time to value metric, I cannot express to you how critical, no matter what sector you're in, that you nail both kind of pre-sale, which is like the pilot, if you have to do an evaluation, that needs to be the greatest thing that a customer has ever seen, right? Truly, it needs to be white glove. We have to fund it. I know it's hard. I know it's expensive. I actually think it needs to be a dedicated team. And then that onboarding experience and time to value needs to be perfect too when they actually buy it. And I really think a lot of this needs to get pushed more and more into the actual product itself. And we need to rethink about what customer experience means, what user experience means from a product lens.
It's interesting because customers have told us forever that they don't like change. They don't like dealing with someone and then being handed over to someone else and then handed over to somebody else. From that perspective, it makes sense. But you said something really important in there. It's we tend to act based on our compensation structure. It's just, it's natural, right? So tying compensation to longer term growth, what it does is right now, there's always a great tendency. If we can bring in a piece of business and we can book that revenue today, but maybe it's not our ideal customer. We know it's going to be a customer that, yeah, we're not quite set up to handle. They're probably going to turn, but you know what? I got somebody breathing down my neck on my quota. If I bring it in, I'm going to get compensated. I'm going to do what everybody's expecting me to do. And where the whole system is set, I'm going to bring that in, right? But what it does is it wastes time, it wastes resources, and it doesn't just set us back to where we were, it sets us back even further because that's another client that we brought in that isn't going to get us to our 3, 5, 10-year plan.
Look, I've been really fortunate to work with some of the best CFOs, and they've taught me. We've spent hours and hours together building businesses. And I'll tell you that CAC to LTV ratio, even if you get to a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it might be, like it's a real thing. And the fact that your payback period it can take a couple of years for your payback period to land an account. So if we land an account and we churn them in 10, 11 months, like that's a terrible economic situation. We've actually lost a lot of money on that account. And yeah, we hit the quota. The sales rep's probably not even there anymore, right? We've paid them commission. They've run away. And we're looking at an upset customer. And listen, when in the world of Reddit and X and everything else, it's not just about the 100K that we just churned after 1 year and that we didn't reach our payback period of 2 to 3X of that 100K. That's not the issue. There's also the issue that they're now going on Reddit and created a distractor, right, from our NPS and so forth and so on. And so I think that there's a lot of long tail ramifications of running that type of business.
So what that means is we've got to rethink our traditional models. And it's really hard. 99, probably 0.9% of the businesses are set up in siloed teams, right? This with the way we've done it. And it's been this baton pass. Marketing queues up leads and we pass it off to sales. And then they go back and they look at if there are more leads and sales takes it. And then you can close that deal and they pass the baton on to customer success. We go to try to close more business. So we're talking about taking a structure that has been in place for decades. And we're talking about quite dramatic changes here. And I know that these aren't just things you've been thinking about in your head, right? You've been having conversations with CFOs and CEOs and right about the legitimacy of these ideas. So what do you think it's going to take to really do that? And will you even be able to attract the right salespeople that have an expectation of living in the world of today, right? Where I get compensated on what I bring in. How does that impact the ability to build your teams in the future?
See, it's a pendulum, right? And it swings from the days of having a full stack rep and not having a lot of specialization in the role. When I was coming up, I was the BDR, I was the sales rep, I was the renewal person, I was the account manager, I was the escalation point. I handled all the financial challenge and the legal and everything, right? That's what a sales rep was when I was first starting and cutting my teeth in the industry. Today, We've got, just like what you said, you've got a big, robust marketing organization that is hopefully creating leads that are real, tangible in the ICP. You've got a BDR organization, sometimes reports to marketing, sometimes reports to sales, that's doing the initial qual. Then you've got a sales rep that does another qualification on top of what the BDR has done. And we got to really hope that the customer journey and the recording of this information, tools like Gong and many others, have really made this far more effective. So we don't have to keep asking the customer multiple times. But look, it still happens every single day. I see it. And then eventually you go through all the sales cycle. Maybe there's a solutions engineer or someone involved that's helping from a technical aspect. Then they come over to either an onboarding team or a CS team, and then it's passed on to them and this SM team and so forth. There's too many folks. And unless you've aligned your customer journey just absolutely perfectly this is a technical problem to solve. This is a technical and process problem to solve. And luckily we've seen a lot of sort of businesses combine Clary, Groove, et cetera, Salesloft now, right? So it made it much easier. And I mentioned some of these sort of integration tools with AI now that can get 2, 3, 4 different tools to talk to one another. Now we've got CS platforms, and we almost have too much technology. And that's problematic too, because many of these tools do the same thing. And which one are we going to go to where? And then different teams want to use different things. And that's why I think it's so critical to have sort of team-oriented goals and across new business acquisition all the way to even retention and expansion. But we can't pay based on team goals, because what ends up happening is it's like college, right? Like a team project, you're always going to have some slackers that are certainly going to get paid, but it didn't do much. And it's human nature, and it doesn't scale. I actually wrote a quick post about kind of compensation frameworks recently, and it is one of the most problematic things to solve when we think about gotta attract the best salespeople. They get paid on $1. They get paid. One of the best heads of sales, Jim Mylan, that I worked under for many years, taught me one thing: the best type of sales rep is coin operated. And I still believe that is true. I believe it's true for even, but we've got to balance that out now with how long, like with the retention aspect, because like you said, landing someone that's going to be unhappy in a few months because we absolutely oversold them it's just not going to work anymore.
No. Getting the sales team on board with this is one thing. Getting the executive team and the board on with this is another thing. Like just addressing that perception that we should be focusing more and more time on new logo development versus expansion. Like, how do you have those conversations at the board level? Because I know you go into board meetings, they're like, hey, Rich, how is this quarter's quota going? And how does next quarter look? That's the number one thing on everybody's mind. So like, how do you get them to change their perspectives? Because if it doesn't happen at the board level, it's going to be hard to happen at the executive level. It's not going to happen at the team level for sure.
Well, this is why boards love the hunter-farmer model, right? They love this idea that they're two separate. That's why the CRO's job is so difficult, of course. But they love this idea that, hey, listen, we can put a VP of sales over hunting, and they have nothing to do with retention. And then we'll put someone over success that's just focused on retention and expansion. And I think for growth-based companies, that does make sense. But it's all about rules of engagement that we need to build. And one of those important rules we need to roll out is going to be that the hunter is going to be attached to ensuring fidelity of implementation and that things go well over time. And there's a lot of different mechanisms to solve this. Maybe they can still be involved. And this is where it comes to this rule of engagement thing. See, a hunter hates to lose the account the second the deal closes. Hates it. Because in most businesses, the big deal isn't the first deal, right? It's the second or third deal. It's after you like, hey, listen, we'll buy it for 10% or 20 or 30 or 40% of our organization. We're not going to roll out all modules, all products, all solutions, right? What? We're going to start to try to trickle in And the hunter, that drives them crazy because they actually want that rate they want to hold the attach rate, right? That's another huge problem to solve, I think, in hunter farmer. And it's really turned this industry to churn reps. I think the attrition, all the data has suggested that the attrition is the absolute highest it has ever been in sales. And I think it's because we haven't come into 2026 yet. We have not changed our minds around it's easier to build product than it ever has been. There's there's going to be more folks who need less funding to build a product than there ever will be, right? This is the biggest moment for that. So we're going to see more competitors and more folks out there trying to sell. And it's just going to be remarkably critical because every single business that I've been a part of, the main thing that has always differentiated us is the client saying your service is better. And when they say service, what do they mean by that? It doesn't literally mean that a human being is there because it's 2026. It means that we have really thought about what a day-to-day user experience is for the end user customer.
And more, you made the point up front, in this AI world, right? We have more and more tools to do that on an automated basis. And it doesn't mean that there's not humans involved, but you took it to another level and you actually started talking about and defining the future CRO and what competencies this future CRO is going to have in this world. And I'd love for you to talk and to share about what your perspective of what your role is evolving into and quite rapidly.
I have said this out loud many times, and I think that the CRO of today is literally going to be completely obsolete and a dinosaur in about 12 to 18 months. I think that everything we know around number of reps to quota, number of CSMs, ratios, all the data that we've had for years and years, all the benchmarks that we understand for best-in-class businesses, from ARR per employee all the way to CAC to all of it, I think is rapidly changing. I think it's changing faster than anybody can really understand. I think the absolute most important thing for a CRO to start thinking about and really doing tests on and implementing is incorporating AI across every single aspect of the customer journey. Every single time you're about to make a hire, you need to think about, is there a process? Is there a product? Is there technology that I can implement? And look, a lot of people think, oh, I have Gainsight, I've got AI, or I've got Gong and I've got AI. That's great. And those are really helpful tools. Don't get me wrong. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about architecting and engineering a go-to-market organization that has bespoke AI built for that particular business's circumstances.
Give me an example. Give me to bring it to life a little bit of what would tangibly change in this kind of an environment, like a tool built specifically for their environment.
It might be for take quote creation, for example, right? With agentic AI, why is a rep spending 20, 30 minutes building a quote? We could literally build a agentic AI layer that talks back to whatever quoting product you utilize, and it could do all the work. All you should be able to do is type, build me a quote for X customer, right? I want 50 licenses. I want a 20% discount on that license. And that's it. And it should be able to go back and say, listen, I have to charge sales tax in California. This is the sales tax that's in California, because it's going to read the table. It's going to put the 20% discount. Then it's going to know that the 20% discount needs to go to my VP of sales for discount approval. So it automatically creates the quote. It sends it off to approval. It gets approved, and it goes back, and the quote's automatically generated in an email. Why can that not happen? And it absolutely can. I'm here to tell you that it can 100% happen, but it literally takes engineering.
Hey, so another example of this is, you can read all the studies. In general, over 60% of content that marketing creates for sales never gets used. And if I was the CEO of the company, I'd be like, what? I'm paying my marketing department to create content to enable my entire sales team, and 60% isn't even being used. You talk about AI for efficiencies and everything. I'm like, that is inefficiency at the highest level. So a big reason why that happens is because marketing creates content for top use cases, right? But we're always deep into, an account, and there's something very specific objections or requirements or requests. And so nothing quite fits. The same AE that's spending half an hour creating a quote is also spending a ton of time writing content that they're going to share to prepare for the next call, right? And now you've got an AI tool that is the ultimate in hyper personalization, right? That's the big trend, right? We have the ability to be better quality and automate so much of the sales process to get our sellers back to selling, not preparing, but actually spending time being proactive in the field. And the technologies that enable this is my takeaway for what you're saying is the CRO, one of their biggest jobs, because every C-suite and every company right now is saying, AI is going to change the game. I'm not exactly sure how, but I better figure it out. And I think what you're saying is it's changing the game as well in customer experience and the whole sales customer success process too. And that the CRO better be leading the charge on doing that so that we can have teams that are focused on the right things, the right proactive activities, so we can better grow this business. That's my takeaway from what you said. I don't know if that's what you intended, or is that a good summary?
No, I think that's a great summary. And look, I've managed marketing for many years, and I'll tell you, building out these assets is one of the most important things that we can do. I think it depends on the scale of the businesses. And this is why large businesses with lots of revenue are able to win even faster, right? And the reason that happens is because they've got these large teams that they have this idea of field marketing. So literally every geo has their own individual person that's building out custom, like how you sell in California or what needs that they have in California may be different than in New York, for example, or Florida. Another example is your enterprise customers are a lot different than your SMB, for example, depending on your market. Because of these types of nuances, we actually have to have specialized marketing people that are able to do this work. And until now, only the biggest companies, 3, 4, 500 million in ARR annual on businesses could actually afford this many heads in marketing that could have 60, 70, 80, 90 heads in marketing. Most businesses sub 100 have 10, 15 people marketing organizations. But what you just said is exactly right. Now with solutions like Clay or Starbridge, and this is a specific ed tech company that just raised a significant round, they are doing the work for you. You have to set it up like an engineer. You have to tell them the market, you've got to tell them the people, but then they will go out there and say, listen, this is what's happening in the account, and this is what we think the best messaging is, and would you like us to send the email? And that's why, so a marketer, we don't need 80 field marketers. We just need 2 or 3 brilliant, technical, engineering focused folks who can make the best use of a product like a Click. And so it's completely going to it's going to change everything. Just how we acquire businesses is not going to be the same at all. It's already changed. And that's why I keep saying folks that are doing Google searches for contact or just leveraging Zoom info and then going on the website and then searching, okay, what does Rich Watson like to do on the weekend? That's just there's a solution that can do all of that at a click of a button. They're going to move faster, and they're going to talk to 5, 6. It used to be that we can only talk to 50 to 75 people a day, make that many phone calls, that many reach outs. That's the absolute best a BDR could do. Now I think that number is 10x that.
Rich, we have talked about so much here that I'd love to just get your point of view on if there was one thing that you wanted all of us to take away from our conversation, like the single most important thing, what would that be?
I genuinely believe that how we judge enterprise value is going to significantly change. I actually think that acquiring new business is going to be easier than it's ever been with all the tools we've discussed. And I think where the rubber meet is going to meet the road is on the actual value that customers derive from the product is going to say and dictate how long they stay with us, which will ultimately dictate how businesses are actually invested in and what that ultimate enterprise value is going to be. So I think it's going to be the most critical thing we could do is just focus on delivering outcomes, whatever those might be, for our customers.
It's an exciting time to be in our business. There's no doubt about that. I just want to say that there's going to be questions. I know there's going to be questions. Is it appropriate if I give out a link to your LinkedIn profile so people could reach out to you?
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. Would love to assist in any way I can.
The whole mission of this podcast is to bring different perspectives and insights from C-suite leaders from all over the world, CROs, CMOs, CEOs, right? And if we can get all those perspectives and keep adding it to like even one thing that's said in every podcast that makes us rethink a little bit about what we're doing and how we're going to do it, that's the massive rising tide that's going to lift all boats. And I thought you were an amazing part of that rising tide today. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming on.
No, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate our friendship and also for you to have me on today. Thank you.